Ethan was about to take his first bite when the growl stopped him cold. It wasn't just a casual grumble. It was deep, low, and deliberate. A sound that came from the chest of something that had seen danger before. Something that remembered. Something that warned. The spoon hovered inches from his mouth, steam curling into the air. The oatmeal had a strange smell. Not bad, just off. But Ethan wouldn't have noticed it if Max hadn't growled. Max, the family's retired K9, stared at the bowl with eyes like sharpened amber. His posture was rigid, tail down, muscles coiled like a loaded spring, and his gaze never left the food. "Max, hush!" Melissa snapped, her voice tight, strained like piano wire about to snap. She forced a smile at Ethan. "He's been weird lately. Old dogs, you know? Probably losing it." But Max didn't stop. He growled louder. Ethan put the spoon down. Just 3 months ago, life had been simple. Ethan lived with his mom in Vermont. But after the custody change, he moved into his dad's new house in the suburbs of Ohio. A 2-story home with a spotless yard, Ring cameras, and a woman named Melissa who insisted on being called Mom even though she wasn't. His real mom used to let him eat Pop-Tarts before school. Melissa made nutritious meals, oatmeal, spinach eggs, herbal smoothies, and no sugar after 5 p.m. She said it was for his gut health, but Max never liked her. Ethan noticed it from the beginning. Max was his dad's old partner from the force, a German shepherd with gray around his muzzle, but fire in his eyes. The dog had served 8 years in narcotics and detection. After retirement, Max had become more than a pet. He was family, protector, watchdog, companion. And now, something about breakfast was setting him off. Melissa stood behind the kitchen island, her apron spotless as always. She leaned on the counter, watching Ethan with an expectant smile. "Eat, honey. It's good for you." "Oh." Max growled again, louder. Ethan pretended to scratch his ankle under the table. Quietly, he lowered the bowl to the floor. Max didn't eat it. He sniffed, growled deeper, then backed away, hackles rising. That day at school, Ethan couldn't focus. Math blurred. Reading was noise. He kept thinking about Max, the way the dog's body had gone stiff, the way his eyes had locked on the bowl like it was a bomb about to explode. At recess, he sat alone near the fence and wrote in his notebook. Why would Max growl at food? Smell? Chemical? Poison? The word poison made his stomach twist. He scratched it out. Maybe Max was just old, confused. But something didn't sit right. He thought back to the first time Melissa had cooked dinner after he moved in. Max had growled then, too, when she brought out a beef stew. And again, the night she baked tilapia with capers and lemon zest. Max didn't eat that night either. Back then, his dad had laughed it off. "Guess Max just doesn't like gourmet cooking," he'd said. But now Ethan wasn't so sure. The next morning, the oatmeal was back, this time with chopped herbs on top, green flecks that Melissa called digestive boosters. Max didn't even wait this time. He barked, short, loud, piercing. "Max!" Melissa shouted, slamming her hand on the table. The silverware rattled. Ethan flinched. His dad came in from the garage, phone still in hand. "What's going on?" "Your dog is acting psychotic," Melissa said, faking a laugh. "It's breakfast, and he's treating it like a drug bust." Max growled again, circling Ethan. He placed himself between the bowl and the boy. Ethan's dad frowned. "That's enough, Max. Go lay down." Max didn't move. That was when Ethan decided something was wrong. Not with the dog, but with the food. That afternoon, after pretending to eat, Ethan emptied the rest of the oatmeal into a napkin and stuffed it in his backpack. On the walk home, he took a detour behind the cul-de-sac into the woods, where wild raccoons sometimes dug through trash. He placed the napkin on a rock and walked away. By the time he came back after sunset, 2 raccoons were dead. His hands trembled. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Max lay curled on the rug beside the bed, eyes wide open, ears perked. His body was still. Ethan whispered, "You're trying to protect me, aren't you?" Max didn't move, but his tail thumped once. The next morning, Melissa was all smiles again. "Guess what, sweetie? I made a new version of your oatmeal. This one has lavender. It'll help calm your nerves." She set the bowl down, kissed Ethan on the head. Max growled. Again, Ethan looked at his father. This was his chance. "Dad," he said carefully, "can we have Max checked? Not because I think he's sick, but maybe he's trying to tell us something." His dad raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" I think he smells something weird in the food." Melissa rolled her eyes, trying to laugh. "Oh, please. What, is he a chef now?" "No," Ethan said. "He was trained for detection, remember?" Silence. His dad sighed. "Okay, we'll take him to the vet tomorrow, just to be safe." Melissa's smile cracked. "Hey, if stories like this grip your heart and keep you guessing, make sure to hit that subscribe button on Heroes for Animals. We bring you true and fictional tales of the incredible instincts, loyalty, and bravery of animals like Max. Subscribe now and never miss the next jaw-dropping moment. Later that evening, Ethan sat on the couch, petting Max behind the ears. The dog leaned in, closing his eyes, his breathing calm but alert. "Why do you hate her?" Ethan whispered. "What do you smell?" His mind replayed the raccoons, the untouched bowls, the chopped herbs, the bitter smell, and that constant growl. He opened his notebook again. This time, he didn't scratch out the word. He circled it 3 times. Poison. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Not really. He tossed and turned under the covers while Max lay curled up beside his bed like a furry shadow with a pulse. Every creak in the hallway made Ethan's breath catch. Every faint step from downstairs sent his imagination into overdrive. Max didn't make a sound. He was alert but calm, as if he knew someone had to stay quiet to survive. The next morning, Ethan came down to the kitchen like nothing was wrong. He tried to act normal. That meant not checking the back door lock, not side-eyeing the oatmeal on the counter, and definitely not looking at Melissa too long. She was already there, smiling, stirring a pot on the stove. "Morning, sweetie," she said in that voice she always used, too chipper, too smooth, like a TV mom from the 1950s. "I made your favorite, blueberry cinnamon oatmeal, fresh herbs on top." Max growled low again. "Jesus," she muttered, tightening her grip on the spoon. "That dog's gonna give me a nervous breakdown." Ethan gave a polite smile but said nothing. His dad wasn't in this kitchen yet, which meant Melissa had control of the room. And she knew it. She leaned against the counter, studying him. "I heard you talking to your dad about me yesterday," she said casually, as if discussing the weather. "You think there's something wrong with my cooking?" The room went still. Ethan shrugged. "I just said Max was acting weird, that's all." She gave him a long, unblinking look before sliding the bowl across the counter. "Then you should eat. Show him there's nothing to be afraid of." Max growled louder. This time, it sounded more like a warning than a protest. At school, Ethan couldn't focus. Again. His brain kept spinning through 100 worst-case scenarios. What if Melissa knew he didn't trust her? What if she figured out he fed the oatmeal to raccoons? What if she found the notebook? During lunch, he sat with a plastic tray of chicken nuggets and mashed potatoes, but he barely touched it. His best friend, Aiden, nudged him. "You okay, dude? You look like you've seen a ghost." Ethan debated saying something. Just a little. Maybe not everything. Just enough to let someone know he wasn't crazy. "My stepmom's been making me food every day, but my dog, he freaks out every time she brings it near me." Aiden blinked. "Freaks out how?" "Growls. Refuses to eat it. One time he barked like there was a burglar." Aiden chewed thoughtfully. "Maybe she's a bad cook?" Ethan nodded, but deep down he knew it was more than that. That night, Ethan noticed something else. Melissa was humming. She was never the type to hum. She liked silence, control. But tonight, she wandered through the kitchen humming a tune under her breath. It wasn't cheerful. It was hollow, like a lullaby sung to an empty crib. She poured something into a glass, lavender tea, and stirred. Max didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't even twitch. He just watched her, his ears forward, head tilted slightly. When she turned around, her eyes landed on him like searchlights. "You know," she said, setting the tea down, "your dad told me the vet appointment is tomorrow." Ethan froze mid-step. "He said you wanted to take Max in because you think he smells something in the food." His mouth went dry. I just wanted to make sure he's okay." She walked toward him slowly, crouching so they were eye level. "You're such a sweet boy. So sensitive. But sometimes our imaginations get the best of us, don't they?" Her hand landed on his shoulder. It felt cold and heavy. "Don't let that dog fill your head with nonsense." Behind her, Max stood up. No growl, no bark, just presence. She turned, gave the dog a long glare, and walked off. That night, Ethan waited until everyone was asleep. He tiptoed down the stairs in socks, careful to avoid the steps that creaked. Max followed close behind, paws silent on the carpet. In the kitchen, Ethan did something bold. He opened the pantry. He'd always been told it was off-limits. Too much clutter, Melissa had said. But now he needed to know. If she was hiding something, it would be here. He scanned the shelves. Cans of beans, boxes of crackers, tea bags labeled chamomile and gut detox. Then he found a small glass jar at the back labeled valerian root powder. He Googled it quietly on his phone. Natural sedative, sleep aid, can cause nausea, dizziness, hallucinations in high doses. Ethan's blood chilled. He checked the expiration date. It had expired 2 years ago, and it was half empty. The next day, they took Max to the vet. The receptionist greeted them warmly, and Dr. Lively, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes, ushered them into a private room. As she examined Max, she spoke gently. "So, tell me what's going on." Ethan's dad gave the basics. The growling, the mealtime tension, the refusal to eat when Melissa cooked. Dr. Lively nodded slowly. "Max is a retired K-9, right? Narcotics and detection?" 8 years on the force, Ethan's dad said proudly. The vet looked directly at Ethan. "Sometimes, dogs like Max notice things we don't. They pick up scents we can't even register. It's what they were trained for. Their instincts are usually right." Ethan sat forward. "So you believe he's sensing something?" Dr. Lively hesitated. "I can't say for sure without testing. But let me ask you this. Does Max react the same way when someone else prepares the food?" Ethan and his dad exchanged a look. "No," the boy said. "Only when Melissa makes it." That night, something snapped. Ethan walked into the kitchen and found Melissa wiping down the counters. Everything was too clean. The air smelled like bleach and rosemary. On the counter sat a Tupperware container with tomorrow's breakfast, neatly packed. His name was written in Sharpie on the lid. "Made it ahead of time," she said, not looking at him. He nodded. "Thanks." Then he walked over to Max's dog bowl and scooped in kibble. Melissa watched him carefully. Max sniffed the bowl, then stepped back, his ears lowered. He growled. Melissa sighed dramatically. "Oh my God, I can't take this anymore. That animal hates me." Ethan didn't say a word. Instead, he walked over to the trash, lifted the lid, and spotted something strange inside. A napkin with green residue, a crushed pill, and a used dropper. He closed the lid. Everything made sense now. Back in his room, he opened his notebook. "She's testing things. On me. Maybe on Max, too. Not every bowl, just some. Enough to keep us guessing." He paused. "Raccoons are dead. Max won't eat. I need proof." Tomorrow, he would hide a camera. Max sat perfectly still in the back seat of the SUV, his amber eyes scanning the tree-lined street, as Ethan's dad pulled into the parking lot of Westwood Animal Clinic. The vet's office stood behind a row of small businesses, a dry cleaner, a family-owned bakery, and a dusty bookstore with a "going out of business" sign in the window. The place looked normal, comforting even. But Ethan couldn't shake the twist in his gut. Max wasn't acting normal. And it wasn't just age or nerves, it was calculated. And dogs like Max didn't just act, they reacted. Ethan kept glancing at his dad as they got out of the car, but his dad's expression was tight. Not angry, just unsure. He clearly didn't believe Melissa was up to anything. Not yet. But he was beginning to doubt the idea that all of this was just coincidence. "Let's just hear what the vet says," his dad murmured. Ethan nodded and followed Max inside. Dr. Lively met them with a smile that felt like warmth on a cold morning. "Max," she said gently, scratching him behind the ears. "Still the sharpest one in the room, huh?" Max wagged his tail faintly, not happy, more polite. Ethan appreciated that. Max didn't fake emotions. He didn't sugarcoat things. As they settled into the exam room, Dr. Lively started her checkup. Eyes, ears, heartbeat. Then she turned to Ethan. "You've noticed a change, huh?" Ethan nodded. "He growls every time my stepmom brings out food, especially when it's mine." "And what kind of food are we talking?" "Oatmeal, smoothies, stuff with herbs. She calls them natural boosters." Dr. Lively paused. "Does he react to anyone else's food?" "No," Ethan said. "Just when she makes it." She scribbled notes onto a clipboard. "Has Max ever had detection training for drugs or toxins?" "My dad said he worked narcotics for 5 years," Ethan said. Dr. Lively looked up sharply. "Then trust me, if he's reacting, there's something off. It could be a smell he associates with a previous case." Ethan glanced at his dad. "Can dogs detect poison?" "In some cases, yes," Dr. Lively said, "especially if it's a chemical compound similar to narcotics or controlled substances. Dogs like Max are trained to respond to those specific scents." "But what if it's natural?" Ethan asked. "Like herbs or plants?" She nodded slowly. "That's trickier. Not every natural ingredient is harmless. Some are sedatives. Others can cause hallucinations, nausea, or worse. Even legal stuff can be dangerous in the wrong hands." Ethan's dad shifted uncomfortably. "You're saying my wife might be poisoning our food?" Dr. Lively didn't answer directly. "I'm saying Max is reacting to something, and we should pay attention to him." Then she leaned forward. "And Ethan, you're doing the right thing by listening to your dog. That's how people get saved." Back home, things felt off immediately. Melissa was already in the kitchen, wearing a fresh apron and setting the table with 3 place settings, like a scene out of a sitcom. When she saw them walk in, she forced a sunny smile. "How was the vet?" she asked. "Did they tell you he's just grumpy and old?" Ethan's dad hesitated. "They said he's healthy, strong heart, no pain or injury." Melissa's smile flickered. "And they said," he added carefully, "that dogs with Max's background don't usually react unless they're trained to sense something." Her face dropped for a split second. Then she chuckled. "Are you saying he thinks I'm smuggling drugs into your breakfast?" "I didn't say that," his dad replied. Ethan said nothing. He looked at Max, who was once again growling softly near the table. Melissa moved to grab her purse. "Well, I'll just step out for a bit. I'm not really in the mood for another interrogation." She left the house without saying goodbye. Ethan and Max watched her car disappear down the street. Later that night, Ethan did something he'd been planning for days. He set up the camera. It wasn't fancy, just an old GoPro from a drawer in his dad's office. He tucked it behind a row of cereal boxes on the kitchen shelf, angled just right to catch the stove, the cutting board, and the counter where Melissa usually prepared food. Max sat by the door, watching him. "You know what to do," Ethan whispered. "Don't eat anything tomorrow." Max blinked slowly as if nodding. The next morning, Melissa was back to her perfect smile. "Good morning, sunshine," she chimed. "Today's oatmeal has turmeric, cinnamon, and a pinch of licorice root. Antioxidants galore." She set the bowl in front of Ethan and then gave Max a hard look. "Don't start, dog." Max sat perfectly still, silent. But he didn't move toward the food. Ethan stared at the bowl. He took a deep breath and reached for it. Then, with trembling fingers, he picked it up and poured it, very carefully, into a Ziploc bag beneath the table. Melissa was on her phone and didn't notice. After breakfast, Ethan pulled the GoPro from its hiding spot and raced upstairs. He plugged it into his Chromebook and fast-forwarded through the footage. And there it was, plain as day. Melissa had poured a powder into the pot while glancing over her shoulder. Not a measuring spoon, just a loose pinch from a glass vial labeled in scrawled handwriting, V root. She had stirred it in quickly, then rinsed the container before putting it back inside the microwave. Inside it, hidden behind a ceramic mug. Ethan's heart pounded so hard he had to pause the video. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't imagining things. Max had been right all along. That afternoon, Ethan walked into the living room holding the bag of oatmeal and the camera. "Dad," he said, "we need to talk." His father turned off the TV and sat forward. "What is it, buddy?" Ethan handed over the camera first, then the bag. His dad watched the video silently. No reaction, just focused eyes. The moment the powder hit the bowl, his jaw tensed. He held the bag of oatmeal like it was radioactive. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "She's been feeding you this?" Ethan nodded. "I'm taking this to the police." But just before they could leave, Max began barking. Wild. Urgent. Scratching at the back door. They opened it and found something horrifying. The garbage cans had been overturned. One raccoon lay motionless on the lawn. The other staggered, frothing at the mouth. The same oatmeal Ethan had thrown out that morning was scattered around them. His dad knelt beside the sick animal, then looked up with panic in his eyes. "This isn't just paranoia, it's real." He looked at Ethan. "We're going to the vet again." And then the cops. Max barked again, just once. This time, it sounded like victory. The house was too quiet. Melissa hadn't come home since that morning. Her car was gone. Her phone was off. And Ethan's dad had already taken the bag of oatmeal and the GoPro footage to the police. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Because even though Melissa was out of sight, the weight of her presence still clung to the walls like smoke. Every room felt like a trap. Every cabinet, every drawer, could be hiding something worse. And Max, though finally calm, refused to leave Ethan's side. They stayed home from school the next day. Ethan's dad called it a mental health break, but Ethan knew it was really about waiting. Waiting for the lab results. Waiting to hear from the police. Waiting to see if Melissa would come back. Ethan spent most of the day curled up on the living room carpet, flipping through old photo albums. He needed something to distract him. Something to remind him that life used to feel normal. That's when he saw it. Tucked behind the family scrapbook, under a stack of newspapers. A dusty black binder with a K9 badge logo on the front and the name Officer Max written in Sharpie. His hands stopped shaking. Slowly, he pulled it out. Inside were laminated pages filled with Max's career history, training logs, commendation letters, and even crime scene photos from cases he'd helped solve. There was Max as a puppy, ears too big for his head, sitting beside Ethan's dad at the police academy. Then another photo, Max in his prime, standing beside a table full of seized narcotics. A younger version of Ethan's dad grinned proudly, one hand on Max's collar. There was a note on one page that caught Ethan's eye. Case number 447BA. Juvenile OD victim. Suspected drugged food at family event. Max detected valerian, benzos, and synthetic opioids in baked goods. Arrest made. One life saved. Ethan's blood ran cold. Valerian, just like what Melissa had in the microwave. Just like what she sprinkled into his oatmeal. He flipped faster now, searching. And then he found it. A full report on a case from 6 years ago involving a child who nearly died after ingesting cookies laced with herbal sedatives at a foster care picnic. Max had sniffed them out before the child finished eating. The investigation uncovered a foster parent who'd been drugging kids to keep them calm and manageable. Ethan stared at the photos, the signatures, the newspaper clippings, and suddenly the growling made perfect sense. This wasn't just memory. It was muscle. Instinct? Max wasn't being paranoid. He was being precise. That afternoon, Ethan sat at the kitchen table across from his dad. Max lay between them, dozing but alert. "I found his case file," Ethan said quietly. His dad raised an eyebrow. "You did?" Ethan slid the binder across the table. Page 42. His father opened it and began to read. The moment he hit the Valerian case, his jaw clenched. "I didn't even remember this one," he said. "It was a rough year. We worked so many." He closed the binder slowly. "I trained Max myself, you know. He was the best I'd ever seen. Trusted his nose more than most officers trusted their own instincts." Ethan nodded, "And now he's saving me." His dad gave him a long, steady look. "Yes, he is." Then the doorbell rang. It was Detective Ramirez, the officer who'd taken the report at the station. She stood in plain clothes, her badge clipped to her belt, and a manila envelope under one arm. "We got the test results," she said, stepping inside. Ethan and his dad exchanged glances. Max's ears perked. "It was valerian," Ramirez said, "but a highly concentrated form, mixed with another compound we haven't fully identified yet. Definitely sedative, potentially lethal in large doses, especially for children or small animals." She held up the envelope. "The GoPro footage helps a lot. We've opened an investigation." Ethan felt a strange mix of relief and fear swirl in his chest. "So what happens now?" his dad asked. "We issued a locate alert," Ramirez said. "Melissa hasn't been to work. She cleaned out her office. It looks like she's trying to disappear." "Do you think she'll come back here?" Ethan asked. Ramirez looked at Max. "If she does, she'll regret it." That night, Ethan slept with the lights on. Max lay stretched across the bedroom door like a living barricade. Ethan could hear the subtle rhythm of his breathing, steady and patient. But Ethan couldn't stop his thoughts from racing. Who was Melissa really? Why had she done this? Did she marry his dad just to get to him? Or was it money, control, or something darker? At 2:17 a.m., Max growled, just once, a low rumble. Ethan sat up, but the hallway was quiet. The house was still. Max went back to sleep. The next morning brought more silence. No Melissa, no emails, no texts. Ethan's dad called the station again, but there were no new leads. Ethan stayed busy cleaning his room. It felt like the only thing he could control. He wiped down his desk, organized his bookshelf, and dug through old drawers. That's when he found it. An old baby monitor with a working camera and speaker. It still had juice. He got an idea. He set the camera up facing the front door and synced it with his tablet. Then he did the same for the back porch. 2 cameras, 2 entry points. 1 kid, 1 dog. The house was on lockdown. By noon, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with Max, working on a science project for school. They were building a model volcano out of papier-mâché and baking soda. Max didn't care for the vinegar smell. Just as Ethan poured the red food coloring, the monitor blinked. Motion detected. Back door. Ethan froze. Max stood up immediately, ears sharp. Ethan tiptoed to the screen. A shadow moved across the porch. Slow, deliberate. Someone was there. He didn't wait. He ran. "Dad!" he yelled, bolting into the garage. "Someone's at the back!" His father burst into the kitchen with the baseball bat from the hall closet. But the porch was empty. Just footprints in the dust. They weren't fresh, but they weren't old either. Ramirez arrived 20 minutes later and took photos. "They're women's shoes," she said, crouching. "Melissa's size." Ethan looked at Max. The growl was back, but this time it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a countdown. The days after the back porch incident passed in slow motion. Ethan kept the house under surveillance like a miniature detective. The baby monitor cameras stayed online 24/7. Notifications buzzed every time a squirrel scurried across the lawn. He barely slept. Every creak made his heart pound. Every wind gust at the window sounded like footsteps. But Melissa didn't come back. Not yet. Instead, something else returned. Doubt. It started with the way his dad paced the house more and more, rubbing his temples. Or how he lingered over old photos of their wedding day. Melissa in a champagne-colored dress, smiling like she'd never hurt a soul. Then came the comment that changed everything. I don't know, Ethan, his dad said quietly one evening, standing in the kitchen with his arms crossed. I watched that video. I know it looks bad. But maybe there's another explanation. Ethan blinked. You think she was accidentally drugging me? I think, his dad sighed, I think maybe she was trying to help you relax. You were having a tough time adjusting to the move. The school, your mom, she was poisoning me. Max stood between them, ears twitching. His body went still like a statue. His dad looked away. We don't know that for sure. Yes, we do. They didn't speak for the rest of the night. Ethan went upstairs, slammed the door, and buried his face in the pillow. Max curled up beside him on the rug, placing his head on Ethan's foot, like he always did when something was wrong. I don't get it, Ethan whispered. Why won't he believe me? Max didn't move, but his tail tapped once. You believe me, right? 2 taps. Ethan reached over and placed his hand on Max's collar. It was like grabbing onto an anchor. The next morning, Ethan found a surprise in the fridge. A bowl of oatmeal, fresh, covered with cling wrap. A small sticky note taped to the top. For Ethan, just like old times, He stared at it for a long time. His stomach twisted. His dad walked into the kitchen, still half-dressed for work, tie undone. I found that in the fridge, Ethan said quietly. His dad paused. I thought you said she hadn't been here. I didn't think she had. His voice trailed off. Maybe she dropped it off. Maybe she still has a key. Are you going to eat it? His dad frowned. No, of course not. Then why didn't you throw it out? Silence. Max walked up to the bowl, sniffed it once, and growled. A low, guttural, bone-deep sound. Ethan pulled out another plastic bag and sealed the bowl inside. Later that day, while his dad was at work, Ethan biked to the vet clinic. Dr. Lively took the sample without hesitation. I'll run a tox panel again, she said. But this feels more like escalation than desperation. What do you mean? Ethan asked. Melissa's trying to assert control. That note? That's a message. She's not hiding anymore. Ethan's fingers gripped the arm of the chair. Do you think she'd hurt Max? Dr. Lively's expression hardened. If she thought he was in her way? Yes. That night, Ethan couldn't sit still. He cleaned the house, rearranged his desk, and even washed Max's food bowls. When he opened the cabinet for the dog food, he saw something strange. The bag had been opened, but the scoop wasn't where he left it. Max sniffed the bowl, then looked up at Ethan. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just refused to eat. Ethan took out his phone and texted his dad. Did you feed Max this morning? No, why? I think someone's been in the house. His dad came home in a rush 20 minutes later, and for the first time, the doubt in his eyes was gone. They searched the entire house. Closets, cabinets, windows. Nothing was broken. Nothing was stolen. But something was off. The back porch smelled like lavender again. Not the kind from a candle. Real, sharp, herbaceous. Max followed the scent to the laundry room. There, behind the detergent bottle, was a small vial. Half full, unlabeled. I didn't put this here, his dad said. Ethan didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Max growled again. His dad finally said it out loud. She came back. Detective Ramirez returned to the house an hour later. She wore a windbreaker and gloves, and this time she brought backup. Officers dusted for prints, took photos, logged the vial into evidence. You were right, Ramirez told Ethan. She's been coming and going while you were out, watching, testing boundaries. What do we do now? Ethan asked. "You stay inside. You keep Max with you. And if she comes back again—" She handed his dad a small remote. "This sets off a silent alarm. Direct to dispatch." Ethan looked at Max. "Don't worry," Ramirez said. "He'll know before we do." Later that night, Ethan and his dad sat on the front steps, watching the sun go down behind the trees. The air smelled like cut grass and concrete. For a moment, it almost felt normal. "I'm sorry I doubted you," his dad said finally. Ethan nodded. "I guess I didn't want to believe she was capable of something like this. She fooled me." "She almost fooled me, too," Ethan whispered. Max lay on the step beside them, head resting on his paws. "She's going to come back," Ethan said. His dad glanced at him. "How do you know?" "Because she didn't get what she wanted." Around midnight, Max woke up first. He stood, stiff, alert. Then he growled. Ethan shot upright in bed. The baby monitor blinked. Motion detected, front porch. Max barked once, loud, sharp. Not fear, command. Ethan grabbed the remote from his nightstand and pressed it. Somewhere in town, a silent signal was racing toward a police station. He tiptoed toward the hallway just as his dad came out of his room. Then they heard it, the front doorknob turning, slow, deliberate. Ethan froze. His dad reached for the baseball bat again. Then a voice, muffled but clear. "Ethan, honey, it's just me. I made you something. Let me in." Max growled louder. "I know your father's filled your head with lies, but I forgive you." Another turn of the knob. "I missed you." The door didn't open. She didn't have a key anymore. Suddenly, sirens. Far off, then closer, fast. Tires on gravel. Red and blue lights slashing through the front windows. A woman's scream. Then footsteps. Running. Then nothing. Melissa was arrested 2 blocks away. She had a cooler in her trunk. Inside were containers of oatmeal, cookies, and a thermos labeled "For Ethan." The contents tested positive for valerian root and another unidentified sedative. When officers searched her old office, they found books on herbal pharmacology, behavior control, and even a file folder labeled "Custody Strategy." She was charged with reckless endangerment, attempted poisoning, and unlawful entry. Ethan sat with Max the next morning as the sun came up through the blinds. "You saved me," he whispered. Max thumped his tail. Then, for the first time in a week, he ate his breakfast without hesitation. It took weeks for the house to feel like home again, even after the arrest. Even after the detectives boxed up Melissa's things and the locks were changed and the cooler of poisoned food was logged into evidence, it still didn't feel safe. Not at first. There were echoes of her in every room. The lavender-scented drawer liners, the sticky note labels on the spice jars, the untouched yoga mat rolled up in the corner of the guest room. She had wormed her way into their lives so quietly, so patiently, that it took time to notice where she'd been. But Max had noticed from the beginning. The town buzzed with rumors after Melissa's mugshot hit the news. A well-dressed woman, a guidance counselor at the middle school, arrested for attempted poisoning. She'd looked so harmless, so polished. People were stunned. But behind the scenes, the DA had built a solid case. Melissa had researched how to sedate children in low doses, just enough to confuse, disorient, make them compliant. Her Google search history was a timeline of intent. The GoPro footage was the final nail. And the cooler in her car? That was all the jury needed. Ethan sat on the courtroom bench next to his father the day Melissa pleaded guilty to felony endangerment, attempted poisoning of a minor, and unlawful trespassing. She wore a gray blazer and no makeup. Her hair was flat, her expression unreadable. She didn't look at Ethan once, but he didn't care. He kept his hand on Max's head the entire time. When the judge read the sentence, 7 years without parole, Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. Like a tight knot had finally been untied. It wasn't relief. It was freedom. After the hearing, the local news station aired a short segment called "Hero Dog Saves Boy from Poison Plot." They showed footage of Max standing proudly in the front yard, tongue out, tail wagging, a gold medal hanging from his collar. Ethan sat cross-legged on the living room floor watching it, grinning. "I told you, you're famous now," he whispered to Max. Max barked softly, almost like a chuckle. The mayor even invited them to City Hall. In front of a small crowd, she presented Max with a framed certificate that read, "In recognition of bravery, loyalty, and life-saving instinct, we honor Max, retired K-9 of the Westwood Police Department, for protecting the life of Ethan James Harper." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even Ethan's dad teared up. The rest of the summer passed in quiet, healing moments. Ethan started therapy, where he learned that trauma didn't just disappear when the danger was gone. It stuck around in strange places, in dreams, in smells, in silence. But he wasn't alone. He had his dad. He had Max. And slowly, the color started to come back to the world. One evening, as the late August sun dipped behind the maple trees, Ethan and his dad sat on the back porch with 2 bowls of ice cream. Max was curled at their feet, licking his own doggy-safe vanilla scoop from a paper cup. His dad broke the silence. "I didn't want to believe it." "I know," Ethan said. "I just kept telling myself she couldn't really mean to hurt you, that I was seeing it wrong." "It's hard when you love someone," Ethan replied. His dad looked at him. "You're way too wise for your age." They both chuckled. Later that night, Ethan stood in front of the bathroom mirror brushing his teeth. He reached for the drawer to grab floss and paused. For a split second, he remembered the day he'd found the vial of valerian root. The coldness of the glass. The way Max had growled before it even opened. Then he looked down. Max sat in the hallway, eyes calm, watching, guarding, still doing his job. The school year started with fewer nerves than expected. Ethan's teachers gave him space. His classmates whispered, but didn't tease. He walked taller now, not because he wanted attention, but because he knew he had survived something most kids couldn't even imagine. And every day, when he came home, Max was there waiting at the front door. Loyal, quiet, wise. One afternoon in late September, Ethan decided to make something special. He pulled out oats, cinnamon, almond milk, and blueberries. The way Melissa should have made it. No herbs, no powders, no secrets. Just real food. He placed a spoonful in front of Max first. The dog sniffed it, then licked it clean. Ethan laughed. "Guess you approve." He took a bite. And for the first time in months, oatmeal didn't taste like fear. They eventually adopted a new routine. Max wasn't just a pet anymore. He was a partner. Ethan took him on walks every day after school, brushed him every Sunday, and even started helping the local shelter with dog training on weekends. "I think Max wants to teach the next generation," Ethan joked one morning. His dad grinned. "He's still got a few tricks left in him." One weekend, they visited a local school for K-9 Safety Day, where officers showed kids how working dogs sniffed out hidden substances. When it was Max's turn to demonstrate, the crowd went silent. Ethan held the leash proudly, while Max scanned a row of boxes on command. He stopped at the 4th one, barked once, and sat. A small satchel of oregano was hidden inside. The kids erupted in cheers. But Ethan's grin wasn't about the trick. It was about the journey. This was more than just a dog. Max was proof that sometimes the quiet ones saw the most. Months later, a letter arrived in the mail. From Melissa. Unopened. Ethan's dad placed it on the counter and didn't say anything. Ethan stared at it for a long time, then walked it to the trash. He didn't need closure from her. He already had it. From Max. Thank you for watching this story. We hope you were as moved by Max and Ethan's journey as we were. Sometimes our greatest protectors don't wear badges or capes. Sometimes they just bark at the right bowl. Thank you for following the story here on Heroes for Animals. If you enjoyed this tale of bravery, trust, and second chances, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss another powerful story. And now we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a pet who sensed something you didn't? Tell us your story in the comments below.